Welcome back to Her Workplace Unfiltered. I wanted to bring this two-part series to you because I have been spending the past few months hosting these workshops for Her Workplace and our network and community focused on building your influence and network. And today is part one of the series where I'm going to focus on building your visibility and influence. So I want to start today with a question, and I want you to sit with this question for a moment before you start to think about what your answer is. So think about, when was the last time someone in leadership, so a director, a VP, an executive, when was the last time that someone at that level mentioned your name in a room you were in? Start to notice whether that question made you pause, or if it made you think a little bit further, or even if it made you a little uncomfortable. One of the most consistent patterns that I have seen with ambitious women in the workplace, especially women who are in the early to mid-level stages of their careers, is they're doing extraordinary work. And almost no one outside of their immediate team knows it. So, not executives, not leadership, not cross functional partners, not the people that make decisions about who gets promoted, who gets tapped for those high visibility projects, or who even gets an invite to these rooms or a seat at the table. This is something that I've noticed after working with and building this network of over 50,000 plus women. It's a consistent pattern that I see of, again, women are working so hard and they're putting in the work and they're getting results, but they're not as visible as they should be. And again, it's not because they aren't talented. It's not because they aren't working hard. It's because we as women have been taught that good work speaks for itself. That if you put your head down, deliver results, be a team player, the right people will eventually notice you. But I'm here to tell you that that's not how the workplace works. That's not how careers are built. That's not how you advance and grow and lead within your industry or your workplace. Leadership pipelines are shrinking, and people who are moving forward are not just the ones that are good at their job, but they are visible. So again, I've been hosting these workshops inside of Her Workplace, and the conversations in these rooms, the questions that women were asking, the things they were finally bringing to the table and saying out loud kind of lit something up in me, which again is why I wanted to bring this to you today. So I'm bringing you those insights that are practical and raw and real, and I hope will help you continue to build visibility and influence in the workplace. So I want to start off by talking about one of the biggest misconceptions that I hear about visibility. It's that visibility is only for extroverts, that it's for the person who loves being in the spotlight, that if you're more introverted, more reserved, or just more private, visibility is not really supposed to be your thing. And that connotation is completely wrong. And I want to dismantle that belief because it is costing women their careers and their opportunities. Visibility is a skill. And like any other skill, it can be learned, practiced, and developed over time. It doesn't require for you to be an extrovert. It doesn't require for you to have this loud personality. It doesn't require constant self-promotion, which can sometimes feel icky. It can feel like you're bragging. And it doesn't require performing a version of yourself that doesn't really feel authentic to you. All it requires is strategy and intention. So let me share some important data points with you. According to a 2023 report that was done by Chief, over 80% of professional women use networking to drive their career growth. And that number isn't just for getting jobs. It includes 84% of women who break into the C-suite, 90% of women who join a board, and 81% of women who secure higher paying jobs. So these are not just smaller numbers. These are career defining outcomes, and they are tied directly to how visible and how connected you are. Now, again, part 2 of this series, we're going to dig into networking. So today is just about visibility, but I wanted to bring you the data up top because it's very clear that if you implement these strategies, you will be able to reach certain milestones and success in your career. Yet there's so many women that feel like they're in this waiting game. And I say this because I was this woman. I spent over 15 years in corporate. I was ambitious. I was doing all the right things. Everyone said, put your head down, work hard. That's all you need to do to succeed. And I wasn't advancing as quickly as I should have been and wanted to. So again, so many women are just waiting. They're waiting to speak up. They're waiting to have something that is worth sharing. They're waiting to be promoted. They're waiting to get paid more. But the hard truth here is that those milestones follow visibility. It's not the other way around of, oh, one day, maybe I'll get the promotion and then finally I'll be visible. If you're waiting until after you get the title or the opportunity to start showing up more visibly, more confident, you've got it backwards. So I want to talk about 3 foundational pillars that I teach when it comes to building influence. I call them visibility, credibility, and connection. And they actually build on each other. So let's talk about visibility first. Visibility is people need to see you, not just in the sense of attending meetings, but in the sense of being known for your work, your ideas, your contributions. Visibility is what opens those doors and it gets your name in rooms that you may not be in yet. Now let's talk about credibility. People need to trust you. Credibility comes from consistently delivering, following through, and being known as someone who does what they say. And trust is the foundation of influence. Okay, let's talk about the third pillar, which is connection. So people need to know you genuinely and authentically. True influence doesn't come from having all of these relationships and contacts. It comes from those relationships that are built on authenticity, generosity, and mutual respect. So going back to these 3 pillars, visibility, credibility, connection. When all of these 3 things are working together, so when you show up, visibility, when you follow through, credibility, and when you build real relationships, connection, you become influential. Again, not by your milestones, your opportunities, your achievements, your title, but this is all built on trust. Going back to my own personal experiences and my story of spending so much time in corporate, I worked so hard. Like I was the first one in, the last one out for years. I did everything that people told me to do. I put my head down, I performed, and I did very well. But that work almost went unrecognized until I realized that visibility is all about being strategic. And it took me some time to finally realize that of okay, if I want to reach these certain milestones in my career, or if I want to go down a certain career path, it's up to me to build visibility. No one's going to do this for me. And so that's why I started to build out this framework for myself. Another framework that I like to use is basically a 3-part framework that's very similar, but it's another way to kind of think about visibility. It's called voice, value, and visibility. And again, these 3 things kind of too build on each other. And when you have all 3, visibility kind of starts to feel more natural instead of feeling like it's forced. So let's talk about each one of these components. Part 1 is voice, defining what you stand for. Your voice is the foundation. So it's how people understand who you are, what you care about, and why your perspective matters. It's overall just your point of view. And a lot of women that I work with and I know have never actually stopped to define what this is. They've spent so much time adapting to their own environments, trying to fit in, trying to meet expectations, that they're never asked, what do I actually want to be known for? So let me ask you that right now. Another question to think about. When someone thinks of you at work, what word comes to mind? What problem do people come to you to solve? What topics consistently energize you? What kind of work makes you feel most like yourself? Your voice is actually rooted in these answers. And once you're clear on what your voice is, the way you show up in meetings, on LinkedIn, on social media, in conversations, all of it starts to feel more aligned. And overall, you're just being you, but with intention behind it. So let's talk about part 2, value. So articulating the impact that you create. This is where credibility is built, and it's where I see the most missed opportunity. So we're so good at minimizing our own impact. We say things like, I helped with this project, or I was part of this team that did this. When in reality, we led, we shaped, we delivered, we solved the problem that no one else could figure out. So I want you to start thinking about, how can I own my language more? And here's kind of what that sounds like in practice. So instead of I managed a project, you could say, I led a cross-functional initiative that reduced client churn by 20%. I love adding numbers to how you communicate and own your language, because it shows the value driven. It shows those results. Another example is, instead of I supported the team during the launch, say I developed the onboarding process that cut ramp up time in half. So again, using those numerical values, I think, provides so much more emphasis on what was achieved. And again, if you can't quantify your results, you can talk about qualitative impact. So how your work made the team better, the process smoother, the client experience stronger. The point is to connect your actions to outcomes and own that connection fully. Okay, so let's talk about part 3, visibility. So sharing your work with intention. This is the part that I think many women resist because it can feel icky, it can feel like self-promotional, that it's braggy, that it's off-putting. But here's a reframe I want to share with you. Visibility is not about bragging. It's about ensuring that the right people have the information they need to make good decisions about where to involve you. When you are invisible, when your contributions go unshared, your wins are not spoken of, your expertise is unacknowledged, you are not just doing yourself a disservice. You're actually making it harder for the people around you to advocate for you, to tap you for opportunities, to champion for your growth. So think about it that way, is that visibility is how you take care of your own career. It's how you make sure that the work that you're doing is showing up and that people know about it. So I want you to think about a contribution that you have made in the last 30 days that no one outside of your immediate team knows about. How can you share that? Is it through a message to a senior leader? Is it through a mention in your next team meeting? Is it through a LinkedIn post? There's different ways you can share and be more visible. Okay, so before we go further, I want to actually take a moment to address some of the most common things that I hear from women when they talk about visibility, because these beliefs are real and I think they're huge in keeping talented women kind of stuck where they are. So here's a few myths that I hear a lot from women. Myth 1, if I do good work, people will notice. We already talked about this one, but I think it's worth repeating. In most organizations, visibility is not automatic, especially for women and especially for women of color. You have to make your work known and you have to be intentional about it. Here's another myth that I hear: self-promotion feels fake and it's uncomfortable. Yes, it can if you're doing it unauthentically. But when you share your work from a place of genuine contribution, when you talk about outcomes instead of titles, when you make it about the value you created rather than how impressive you are, it starts to feel less self-promotional and it starts to feel more like honest communication. Another myth that I hear is, I don't have anything interesting to say. You do, and you always do. You have a perspective that is shaped by your unique combination of experience, expertise, and insight. And the problem isn't that you have nothing to say, it's that you've been waiting until your perspective feels perfect before saying it. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be genuine and authentic. Okay, 2 more myths that I hear a lot. I don't want to come across as arrogant. I think there's a meaningful difference between being arrogant and confident. Arrogance, to me, dismisses others, and confidence owns what you bring while still making space for everyone else. So the women who are the most confident, the most magnetic to be around, aren't the ones who never talk about themselves. They're the ones who talk about themselves with warmth and honesty while also genuinely lifting other people up. So they're not trying to prove anything to other people. And then the last myth that I hear is, I'm not senior enough to have a personal brand or to have influence. Your influence in your brand is being built whether you're intentional about it or not. Right now, people in your company or your organization have an impression of you. And the question is that impression the one you want them to have? Because the sooner you start taking control of it and shaping it, the more powerful it becomes. And you'll get the outcome that you want. So I want you to think a little bit more about, which of these myths do you believe or have you believed? Which one have you been holding on to that has been keeping you from showing up more fully and building influence? Okay, so I now want to move on to sharing more tactical resources and visibility building actions that you can start right now. And these range from things that you can do internally at your organization to things that you can do externally to build your presence and profile over time. So at work, a few things. Speak up in meetings, even when you're not sure. And I personally used to make it a goal of mine to speak up once in every meeting that I was in. And it doesn't have to be a statement, it could be a question. I think curiosity is so important here. These moments do accumulate and they build up and they signal that you're confident, you're present, you're engaged, and it's such a good thing to speak up. Another thing to do is to share your wins with your boss or your manager and be proactive about it. Don't wait for a performance review to tell your manager the things that you've accomplished. Like you could even send a brief weekly or biweekly update. If you don't already, you can keep it short, outcome focused. Again, this is just a smart thing to do to stay in front of the people that you report to. Another thing to do is volunteer for high visibility projects. So look at the cross functional work and teams within your company or any special initiatives that are going on that can expose you to leadership that you wouldn't normally be involved with. I think these are great ways to expand your internal visibility. And if you're not sure, you can always ask the person that you report to or the people on your team. And then the last thing here is whenever you have the opportunity to present the work you've done, take it. Even if it may feel awkward or uncomfortable, the people that present the work that they do get credit for the work, even if it is a team effort. So again, think about those outcomes of how were you involved in this project and what did you deliver? What were those results? Okay, so let's talk about social media and how to be visible externally. There's so much opportunity to build your brand on LinkedIn. So a few ways to do this is share insights from the work that you do. It doesn't have to be a personal story. It can be lessons you learned from a project, observations from your industry, things that you have found helpful in your work. I think that's a great way to just start sharing your insights and your knowledge on the LinkedIn platform. Another thing to do is to comment on other people's posts. So visibility isn't just about having to put yourself out there and publishing content. If you don't like doing that, it's okay. Instead, be an engager. So show up in other people's conversations, build your presence and your network that way by commenting, sharing, and reposting. And then another thing is document your wins in the public. So any promotion, any award, any milestone, any completion of a project that you've been on, share it. Again, this isn't about bragging. It's just about sharing things that you've accomplished with your network so people see you and so that they can lift you up and celebrate you. Some other ways to kind of show up in your community and in building visibility is get involved with attending events or, being in leadership spaces. When I was in corporate, I spent a lot of time sitting on junior boards of organizations, and it was such a great way to be in a leadership position, but also to build my network with people that I wasn't interacting with on a daily basis. So I would put yourself in those rooms where your peers and your role models are, because you can't just build your network and visibility internally. And then one other thing is mentoring others. When you mentor someone more junior, you do become known as a leader and you become known as a contributor to your community. So, again, that reputation does compound. So find ways to help and support other people and be a mentor, as well as being a mentee. Find those leaders and influencers that you want to get supported by and share your wins, share the things that you're doing with them, because then they'll go out and share with others. So I want to kind of end with emphasizing my own personal experience and story and why I like to help other women by sharing the insights that I've shared with you today. When I was in corporate, I was great at my job, but I spent years in the background. I thought that my work would speak for itself, and I waited to be discovered instead of showing up and being strategic about how I was building my influence. And I missed out on opportunities that I didn't even know were available to me because the right people, the people that were making decisions, didn't know me and the work that I was doing. The shift for me came when I started investing in my own visibility. And it actually really began when I went to business school and I was exposed to all of these diverse leaders and experiences and perspectives. And it kind of opened my eyes to, wow, there's a whole nother world outside of the industry that I was in. And, that led me to entrepreneurship. And, as an entrepreneur, you have to be visible because you're building something and you need people to know about it. And so that's when I started sharing my own insights on LinkedIn. I started taking on more speaking opportunities, engagement opportunities, ways to get involved in my community, leadership opportunities within other professional organizations. I made a huge point to be in the rooms that maybe I wasn't even invited in yet. And within a few years, my LinkedIn has grown to over 12,000 followers. I get mentored by C-level executives. I went to business school. I built the foundation of her workplace. And none of that happened by accident. All of it happened because I made the decision to stop waiting to be seen and I started showing up. And I was strategic about how I was going to increase my own visibility. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes it is uncomfortable, but you just have to remember that your career growth, all of it is shaped by how visible you're willing to be. So, a few things I just want you to walk away with from today's episode is visibility is a skill. It can be learned and it can be practiced. Your voice, your value, and your visibility work together to build influence. And all three of those need your attention. The myths that you've been told about self-promotion are costing you opportunities, so let those go. And then lastly, the small, consistent actions, such as speaking up, sharing wins, showing up in the right rooms, these compound into a reputation that will open doors. So I encourage you this week, I want you to do one thing. Identify one contribution that you've made in the last 30 days that the right people don't know about and share it. Share it with your manager, share it on LinkedIn, share it in a meeting just once, just share it. So, part 2 of this series, we're going to go a little bit deeper. We're talking about the other half of influence, and that is relationships. So, we're going to talk about how to build a network that actually works for you. And I'll walk you through how to create your own kind of relationship map, how to reconnect with people without it feeling awkward, and how to put yourself in rooms where the conversations and decisions that matter are actually happening. So, thank you for being here with me today for part 1 of the Building Your Influence in Your Network. If today's episode resonated with you, I would love for you to share it with someone who's been doing incredible work and remind that person that it's time to be seen. I'll see you next week.